It was Sir Prawn who first produced or obtained fire. Some yam leaves, being shriveled and dry by reason of the hot weather, caught fire and burnt. The prawn made a fire with some firewood and went to sleep. The kingfisher stole fire and ran away with it. He made a fire and cooked some fish. When he had filled his belly, he went to sleep. The dove stole fire from the kingfisher and ran away. In one of the oldest folklore of this island, it is implied that it was the dove who gave the fire to the ancestors of the Andamanians. And inhabiting its dense, broad-leaved evergreen forest, guess who is the state bird of Andaman? The endemic wood pigeon, belonging to the family of doves and pigeons. And yam leaves, which is basically stir-fried sweet potato leaves, research now indicates that they are more nutritious than spinach, carrot, cucumber, and supposedly enhance immune functions, boost metabolism, lower blood sugar, improve eyesight, and act as an anti-inflammatory, hence known as anti-cancer vegetable. Well, Nicobari tribes consumed them throughout since time immemorial before any such findings. They also celebrate a festival called Baradin, where they display the varieties of different tubers, of which greater yam is the major tuber crop. This particular greater yam is otherwise called as Nicobari aloo. Wait, why I'm talking about Nicobar while traveling to Andaman? Are they one and same or two different islands? Let's see. Andaman is enduring and gritty, fluid and tempestuous, almost feral at times. Unless we get over from this narrative of beautiful beaches only, we will forever remain stuck with the emerald water where tourists go for scuba diving and drinking coconut water while enjoying sunsets, which is pretty fine and charming. However, if you are not a tourist but deeply interested about intimately knowing and feeling a place with a spirit of exploration like me, then you would definitely like to optimize your experience for an unforgettable account while keeping ample space for your own unique experience. Join me in this journey called Andamania. Series 1 will tell you exactly everything that you wish to know in terms of curious as well as requisite information, keeping in touch with the visual poetry that Andaman offers. It's roughly been 1.5 months since I made this journey, and I still can't get over the stunning aerial view. Maybe because this was my first trip to a tropical island that is considered as a global biodiversity hotspot. But it's not just a single island, isn't it? You can see a series of disjointed islands with different shapes and sizes. And these islands are located much closer to the countries of Southeast Asia than they are to the Indian mainland. So, does it mean that there's no single island called Andaman? So, we are clear now that when we say Andaman and Nicobar Islands, or even just Andaman Islands, we are essentially talking about a vast group of islands and not a solo island. Located on the ancient trade route between India and Myanmar, this Andaman and Nicobar group of islands is essentially an area which comprises of a conglomeration of 572 islands, out of which only 38 are inhabited. These unique islands with untapped potential constituting India as one of the 8 current Union territories, not only straddle important sea channels, but they comprise the sole archipelago in the bay. The Andaman Sea lies to the east of this archipelago, while Bay of Bengal to the west. So in the aerial footage, my flight was crossing the Bay of Bengal, encompassing an area of 8,249 square kilometer. The ANI are two main group of islands. One is the Andaman group, another is the Nicobar group of islands, governed by a single union territory by the central government of India through Andaman and Nicobar administration, with the capital city, Port Blair, being the hub. Over 80% of this land is recorded as forest land. Out of this 8,249 square kilometer, which comes to roughly what? 6,700 square kilometer. And this includes 9 national parks, 96 wildlife sanctuaries, and 1 biosphere reserve. So it's a travesty to speak about Andaman only without mentioning Nicobar, and also only to talk about stunning beaches, which they definitely are. But irrespective of if you are traveling to other terrains or not, they are all part of this one great island carve. If you look at the Andaman group of islands where I was traveling, it is divided into 3 main islands: North, Middle Andaman, and South, collectively known as Great Andaman. Other prominent islands in here include Landfall Island. This is the Interview Island, and then you'll see Richie's Archipelago here, and down south you can see Rutland Island, and of course the least explored and most awe-inspiring North Sentinel Island, inhabited by the mostly uncontacted group of humans in this planet, the Sentinels. The fact that I was traveling even remotely close to this place evoked thrill and respect. I'll talk about the tribes after a while. Let's focus on the place first. Let's get the obvious out of our way first. Unless we are traveling into tribal zones, Indian nationals don't require any permit or passport to visit Andaman group of islands. Earlier, all foreign nationals required restricted area permit before visiting Andaman, but government has excluded the 29 inhabited islands mentioned in the box from this regime till 31st of December 2022, barring the citizens of Afghanistan, China, Pakistan, and foreign nationals having their origin in these countries. These rules keep on changing as part of the government's strategic decision towards foreign policy. And so if you are a foreigner planning this trip, always inquire about RAP and other procedures in detail during the time of your travel. You must have noticed the mention of North Sentinel Island in the box, implying RAP was once revoked even for foreign nationals. However, rampant cases of violation endangering human lives prompted the decision that as far as Sentinel Island is concerned, any tourist is required to take permission from the Forest Department and the administration of Andamans, as it is protected under 2 other acts: Protection of Aboriginal People and Forest Acts. There are roughly 40 prohibited places on earth, of which a dozen belong to India, with Andaman and Nicobar securing several such unapproachable places. Sitting on a 106 million year old oceanic crust, Barren Island is the only confirmed active volcano in India as well as in South Asia. Well known as a submarine emergent volcano, as the name suggests, its extreme harsh conditions made it unfit for human habitation. There is provision of booking private ship or charter a boat from Port Blair or Havelock, and typically they take care of special permits. Even though one can't get down on this island, you can still approach close enough for a visual treat. A large group of adults are usually needed to bring the cost down, as otherwise a single person needs to pay anywhere between 75k to 1 lakh INR. Since very few special interest groups travel there, this was my first booking of the trip as I wanted the tour operator to gather few co-passengers. No idea whether they could manage even one, as there was twin cyclone while I traveled and the operator cancelled due to the inclement weather. I will try again, as the visual fiesta of its underwater ridges with purple hemp soft coral is truly unmatched. Nicobar Island was completely off limits. It's exciting that we can now travel to the very last island of the Andaman and Nicobar archipelago, the Great Nicobar, and the fastest way is to fly from Port Blair. However, precedence is given to the medical quota, VIP quota, and government officials and researchers, so chances of getting a spot is very low. The other option is to visit the Directorate of Shipping Services, the DSS office in Port Blair, to take ships. While Indians don't need permit to visit Great Nicobar, for designated zones, tribal permits are required, and both tribal and forest permits are typically needed if one intends to visit to the Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve and Galathea National Park. For foreign nationals, the chances of getting permits to travel to Nicobar is pretty low. It's a 10-degree channel that separates Little Andaman Island from Nicobar Islands, which is part of the Great Island Arc, associated with intense volcanic and seismic activities. Car Nicobar in the north and Great Nicobar in the south, the only island in this archipelago with a significant amount of fresh surface water, are the most prominent islands in Nicobar. In comparison to the Andaman side, Nicobar has even more diverse terrain. In contrast to Nicobar, flat topography is rare in Andaman. This 10-degree channel, that from Little Andaman to Nicobar Islands, is roughly 145 km long. So Nicobar Islands are not too far from Andaman. However, the journey from Port Blair to the Campbell beyond Great Nicobar can easily take 2 days, with most ships making halts. Some sailing itineraries also involve a stop at Car Nicobar and some other islands where you need tribal permit to disembark. In case you are feeling overwhelmed with what requires permit and what not, best is to always check the official Andaman and Nicobar website before planning. You can navigate to the FAQ section where you will find a lot of information along with information pertaining to RAP. Since the rules around permit keep on changing, the best is to consult this website because otherwise internet can be a source of potentially confusing information. However, the general rule of thumb is that Indians don't need any formalities unless entering into a tribal region, and foreigners need to inquire well in advance about RAP permits and other necessary formalities. Now, enough with the talk of restrictions and permits. Trust me, there's plenty to explore here without getting entangled into any such red tape at all. I have been there for 2 weeks and traveled from south to north of Andaman group of islands and yet to visit many places. Considering that these are extremely remote islands, Andaman is surprisingly well connected in terms of commute. The capital, Port Blair, in the south, is connected to all other islands via a ferry network. This means you can take a ferry from here and visit other islands like Havelock, which is recently renamed as Swaraj Deep, Neil Island, and then you can go further up in the north if you would like to visit Long Island and Guitar Island, which is a guitar-shaped island. It is closed during COVID time. Some private operators provide limited inter-island seaplane services too, subject to availability. Port Blair also offers quite a bit to explore. I will share detailed information about these places in future videos. Now, if you intend to travel from the south to north say Diglipur, like I did, then you can go by bus or via rented cab or Aval seaplane services. This journey via Andaman Grand Trunk Road necessitates you to cross the intriguing Jarwa Reserve Forest along with other major towns like Rangat and Mayabandar. And then you can reach to the North Andaman. Kalipur beach is famous for turtle nesting, and this is Diglipur. And here is the Rossensmith Island, which is a very pristine island. You will make this travel. You may have chance encounters with one of the purest races of the continent, living since millions of years as hunter-gatherers. It's crucial to follow all protocols while entering the most pristine wetland ecosystem of this extremely valuable yet marginalized Jarawa tribe. Check about the permit requirements. Always check the official Andaman and Nicobar website before planning. Besides being Indian Navy and Coast Guard's air base with a civil enclave, Port Blair's Veer Savarkar International Airport is the main airfield and airport in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. This airport is located just 2 kilometers away from the town. As someone traveling from Bangalore, that's music to my ear. After all, the time taken from my residence in Bangalore to Bangalore International Airport was roughly the same as the time taken by the flight to reach Port Blair. Traveling by flight is not the only way to reach here though. On behalf of Indian government, the Shipping Corporation of India operates passenger and cargo transportation services between the mainland and Andaman group of islands, along with inter-island vessels. Currently, there is no online portal for booking ships to Andaman. Tourists must be present at the STARS office located in Kolkata, Visakhapatnam, or Chennai to get their tickets. For inter-island travel, say you want to visit from Port Blair to Havelock or Neil, it's much more comfortable to book ferry from private operators. Based on options currently available, I would recommend Macruz Gold. The inter-island shipping schedule of government ferry are announced in advance in Andaman official website. If you want to visit Little Andaman, as of now, only government vessels connect Phoenix Bay and Haddo Wharf in Port Blair with Hart Bay in Little Andaman. Coming to the most crucial part, when to travel. If you do a Google search, most of the resources will tell you that October to May is considered as the most suitable window. But suitable for what? If only Andaman weather was so straightforward. If you are keen on water activities, it's best to check the local weather condition before you finalize because water visibility and turbidity can impact your experience. Typically, January to mid-March is a safe bet. December to mid-February is the turtle nesting season. Leatherback nesting on beaches of the Little Andaman Island has recovered substantially after the 2004 tsunami, and while the process is heavily dependent on weather, winter months are favorable time. If you are a birder, the ideal time for birdwatching is pre-monsoon and post-monsoon, any time when it is not overcast and raining. November to February is the best time for experiencing mangrove creeks, and from May to September, you will find an untamed side of the nature. Your senses will be all on in this so-called off-season. Here I only mention from mid-April to June because monsoon months in Andaman experiences heavy rainfall, and that can be bothersome. May to June is a great time for watching terrestrial reptiles and amphibians though, and exploring different moods of the sea. I spoke with the locals and shared this ground information in terms of when to travel for what, because recent climate changes, sea level rise, and seasonal shifts play a role. Typically, by mid-May, monsoon hits hard. But much more hazardous is the fact that these islands are extremely vulnerable to cyclone, and that can strike any time. During cyclone, Underwater activities and inter-island travels can be cancelled without prior notification, and even when they are not, there's increased safety risk. So it's important to check cancellation policies of all your advanced bookings. It's prudent to book the inter-island cruises first because seats are limited there. Then, depending on its availability, you can plan your island hopping and book stay and transport. Talking about island hopping, it's good to note that authorities are strict about preserving marine ecosystem and taking shells, sea stars, corals, even the dead ones are not allowed as it denies homes to hermit crabs. Airport authorities will seize if you make such illegal attempts. Here the ground rule is not to touch anything that you can find on the beaches except plastic or other wastes. I have recommended few accommodation options entirely based on my own personal experience. In terms of what to carry, a BSNL SIM will save your day in most islands, as well as Airtel and Jio. Vodafone only work in very limited pockets. Internet is still unstable in Port Blair. Outside of Port Blair, connectivity is overall understandably poor to non-existent, except in reception area of even premium properties. Also, insect repellent and trekking gear are must if you got plans to explore because while scuba gears are amply available, these are not. Most of the islands got multiple ATMs now and digital payments are broadly accepted, but there could be frequent server issues and hence it's best to carry some liquid money. If you want the flexibility and freedom in your exploration, I would suggest not to deal with tour operators as far as practicable or buy some package deal. Tourism in Andaman is at its nascent stage, and I hope this place doesn't get assailed by the pressure of development activities and irresponsible tourism. Considering the devastating history of colonial interventions here, it's all too natural that the vulnerable and isolated tribes, now whether it's totally self-imposed or by design, is a debate for another time, want to be left alone. The tribes of the Andaman Islands are believed to have lived in the Indian Ocean home for up to 55,000 years, that is 35,000 years before the last ice age. These four tribes of Negroid descent, Great Andamanese, Ongas, Jaroa, and Sentinelese, are the result of the first human migration out of Africa 70,000 years ago, as the writer and linguistic scholar Anvita Abdi mentioned in this highly recommended book comprising of folk tales and songs. The fact of the matter is that their immune system is unprepared to deal with external pathogens, which decrease their population drastically throughout history. Civilization has been terribly unkind to them. That's why trying to establish contact often has serious ramifications for both parties. If I just say that the Sentinels, or as a matter of fact, any of the tribes living here, don't particularly welcome visitors, well, that would be a sheer understatement. After the Sentinels reportedly killed the American missionary John Allen Chow in 2018, when he visited the island with the religious mission of conversion, the Western world took a notice that there's another world, and perhaps many more, inside this globe that most of us believe we are living in. While such loss of life is unfortunate, not sure why this individual thought that the tribals suddenly needed religious direction when they themselves are the living embodiment of Mother Earth. This is a press release which states that uploading pictures or videos of tribes in social media will lead to jail terms. Apart from highly sophisticated preservation-oriented research supported by government, which I don't think any YouTubers are doing on them, I don't even know how is uploading possible in the first place. Making any contact or shooting photos, videos with the protected tribes are illegal, and the offender may face anywhere between 3 or more years of stringent imprisonment. I will have detailed discussion on these tribes in future. By the time this flight started making descent, it was pouring in Port Blair. There has been an IMD warning of a cyclonic storm a few days before. But everything was booked by then and I didn't want to cancel my trip. I was already mentally and otherwise prepared for rough weather. My major concern was cancellation of inter-island trips, where I pre-booked my stay. But all such worries magically vanished when I saw this. Even though there were blemishes and scratches on the pothole, the view down there was breathtaking. A beauty this make you believe in animism, a sensibility that attributes sentience to environment, animals, plants, and so on. And in that moment, I realized how perfect is the tourism tagline: emerald, blue, and you. Due to the poor visibility amid stormy weather, there was a delay in landing, but it didn't bother me at all because that meant more time to experience this wonder from the height without any cluster of high rises in the sight. It's difficult to believe that not too long ago this was the place for ruthless colonial oppression, the infamous Kalapani.